Hey, what time is it? I can't hear you. It's ToyCon TV time, powered by Xlink, and welcome to the big show. Woo-hoo! And today, June 27, would have been day 2 of ToyCon 2020. It will always be about heart. Allow me to introduce my co-host for this segment. Is the co-founder of Toy Soldiers 118 or TS 118, the oldest and the first local GI Joe group community that has partnered with ToyCon since 2007, and he's also the co-admin of the very newly minted GI Joe Philippines. All right, so let's bring him on the show. Please welcome Mr. Glenmark Antonio. Hello, Glenn.
Hi guys. Good evening.
Welcome. There you go. Welcome
very,
back.
very
Second
big
time
show.
around
Yeah.
na pala, no?
Oh yeah. Second
time
time.
around mo na on ToyCon TV. And I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be more memorable for you than the first time you were on as a guest. All right, because you are going to help me introduce our final guest for tonight. And I know a lot of people are looking forward to seeing him, because this is the first time that we actually are going to get to this is the first time that he is going to be able to interact with a Philippine audience, because we just found out recently that he's never been to Manila.
Never.
He's been to Australia. He's been to New Zealand. I think those are his farthest flights away from his hometown, New York. Okay, so he's from uptown New York. And we actually woke him up bright and early today. So it's exactly 12 hours from New York time. And he very graciously accepted our invitation to come on ToyCon TV for tonight. So maybe just allow me to introduce him by way of his work. All right, let me just grab my... anyway, so much for my codigo.
A lot of the listeners are so excited. Everybody's really just commenting on our live chat. So Cholo, take it away.
All right,
Intros are
so
with
maybe
you.
we can put on the presentation. Well, the guy that we're going to put on now, if you see a write-up, if you read his Wikipedia, you will be sort of wondering, what have I done with my life? Because this guy has been a writer, has been an artist, an editor, a veteran. You know, he was a war vet. He's an actor. He came out in an episode of MASH, the TV series. He's a musician. He's a political activist, and he's a martial artist who studies judo, Japanese archery, and swordsmanship. I mean, what have you done with your life to show for, as compared to this guy? All right. So he attended the prestigious Manhattan High School of Art and Design, and he served a tour in the Vietnam War as an explosive ordnance expert for the Army Corps of Engineers. And after his discharge, that is where he found out that he was actually a good drawer. As he says, as he describes himself, he doesn't really, I guess, pertain to himself as an artist, but he's a drawer. He draws real good. All right. And he worked as a graphic artist. He first joined up. Maybe we can show the first slide there. He first joined up with EC Comics. All right. With the EC legend Wally Wood. All right. And he assisted in comic strips like Canon and Sally Forth. And then he got into Continuity Associates with Neil Adams, our guest back in ToyCon 2018. Yes. All right. And then he went on to Marvel Comics, where he succeeded Gil Kane as the penciler on Iron Fist. All right, Marvel Premier's Iron Fist, and then of course he went on to his epic and of course his most well-known run in GI Joe, writing and drawing most of the entire run for Marvel, and still continuing on the current run in IDW Comics. So these are just some of the comics that he's produced. All right, I have that issue of Batman. Of course, he did Punisher Warzone, he did Wolverine, he did Venom, and of course, I said his body of work is really GI Joe. All right, from issue number 1 of the Marvel Comics up until issue, and we're going to talk about his latest work with IDW because he's got some exciting news about the GI Joe that is happening in IDW. So I hope if everything is ready, please welcome, yes, the man. And how does he call himself on Facebook? His additional
Been
moniker.
faking it all my life.
Been faking it all my life. We'll find out what he refers to by that. Please welcome on ToyCon TV the one and the only Mr. Larry Hama.
Larry Hama.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi, Larry.
Wow,
Hi.
my God. Hi, Larry. Good morning,
everybody.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Loud
good.
and clear, loud and
Okay.
clear, sir. All right. So you're coming to us live from upstate New York. Where exactly?
It's a little hamlet called Slate Hill. It's about 90 minutes from Manhattan.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
All right. Are you okay? Are you doing okay in your little community over there? I mean, this pandemic, as we've of course we've all seen it on the news. You know, New York is really a hot spot for the virus.
Oh, yeah.
How have you guys been, putting up with it?
We're doing pretty well. I'm here with my wife and my daughter and her husband, and we have this a Civil War era farmhouse in upstate.
Wow.
So it's built 1860s or 1870s. So, and it wasn't like restored. It has all the original floors and doors and windows and everything, but it's still, very livable. But, and it's very rural,
Nice.
we're not in a development. We're surrounded by real farms, and you can tell that in the morning when the wind shifts,
That's nice. I mean, it sounds really cozy.
Yeah, our neighbors are dairy farmers, so
Oh wow.
we get the cow smell.
I can just imagine you living on the farm, social distancing, not a problem at all. And then
No.
you have to come up with these storylines about war and about bad guys and good guys. And so it must be an interesting setup for you, So I'm going to leave it up to Glenn.
Okay.
Glenn, of course, is our main guy for the GI Joe fan club. And he's going to be, of course, talking a lot of GI Joe with you. So Larry, thank you so much for coming on. So go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you, Cholo.
All yours. Thank you.
Time to discuss some GI Joe stuff, Larry. Again,
Okay.
speaking for a lot of Filipino GI Joe fans that haven't really been able to meet you in person. Everybody's really so excited. The chat box is really blowing up right now. But obviously, our goal for tonight, for the viewers out there, is to showcase your stories, Larry. Those stories that some of them may have been yet untold. Nobody has seen them in YouTube. About about your work, because that's the only way we could really reach out to you, watch your interviews on YouTube and probably Netflix, the toys that made us. But obviously your work with the comics will be discussing that. Some of your work with the file cards, a lot of the personalities and the backstories were from those dossiers that you wrote back in the 80s and being used until now. And I believe you got some we got some questions for you about the Snake Eyes movie and stuff from other media where GI Joe is concerned. So we'll go straight now to GI Joe comics. Basically, my really first question with you is that you've done your writing work for GI Joe with Marvel, Hasbro, and IDW, and over the last few decades, you have churned out some unforgettable storylines. So can you tell us how you picked up where you left off back in '94 and bridged it through 2010? We know there's the 155.5 with the IDW run.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you pick that up from '94?
It felt like it was like last week. No, because it's a very particular personal universe for me, since pretty much every single character is based on somebody I know or somebody I'm familiar with. I did that right from the beginning because when I knew that I had to write this toy adaptation comic, And they tell me, oh, well, there's 10 good guys to begin with, and there's like something like 4 or 5 bad guys. I said, well, that's 15 characters. You know, that's more than there were Avengers at the time. You know? And everybody I knew that worked on the Avengers always used to complain about, oh, there's so many characters, and you got to memorize so many costumes, and I knew it was going to be very difficult to keep track of. So that's why I wrote what I call dossiers for myself. They were about 2 pages long. And it laid out everything that had to be known about that character so that I could keep track of all this stuff. And on top of that, by basing the intrinsic nature of the character on an actual person, I had a point of reference. So I couldn't stray too far from the character. I think maybe that's one of the reasons for the popularity is the consistency of the characters. They have a reality of their own, and you know, you've learned about them in the same way that you learn about real people, in very small increments over a long period of time. So I
Okay.
don't know. I may have strayed away from the question.
No, that's totally fine. I mean, I totally get it. It really feels like yesterday because it was
Yeah.
easier for you to draw the characters straight up from 94 and really just bring them in for 2010 as if it was a project that you made a previous month. Now tell me about this. So over the past few months, there were news that circulated that IDW's GI Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 275 is set to end in the next couple of months. And I was actually really supposed to ask you if would you be ready with more stories should there be any confirmation to continue the series with IDW or with any other publishing company. Any stories about possibly 275 onwards?
I just handed in 276.
Woo!
Being Netho Diaz is drawing this issue, and he's really terrific. I've seen his first 5 pages of pencils are mind blowing. So it's not completely pencils down. The thing is, nobody knows what the coming circumstances for distribution and printing and all these things
Right.
are. So you can't.
But they're ready.
Yeah, but they want to be ready. You know,
Right.
Even if you know the means of distribution and the actual product alters in some way, you have to have the next issues.
Right.
Yeah. So
Just so it's ready.
yeah. So
were there any plans for beyond 276 already? I mean, like 276 is already being penciled. So, like,
Yeah.
do you have? Are these individual stories? Are these like a
yeah,
longer story arc?
These are we sort of planned out 5 more issues of what we call the Untold Tales. Okay, so these are stories about the GI Joe team that had never been told before. So they may take place in between 2 issues, for instance. So the story that is in 276 is about the original Snake Eyes and Scarlet and Stalker on a secret mission with Scoop, of all people, into Trucial Abysmia.
Right.
So yeah, so it's a chance to like use characters that haven't been around for a while or even have died in the continuity. And
I see. Will Timber be there?
No, not in Trucial Abysmia.
But wow, I mean, this is something really, a huge news. So it's something revealed in ToyCon TV that we're going beyond 275. There are preparations for 276 and 5 single issue comics coming out or pending distribution. Now, given that, there were new 6-inch toys that were announced by Hasbro, and do you think we will be seeing any of those designs, or if they come out with vehicles in the comics, or will you stick with the A Real American Hero versions, which are still present in the IDW run?
Well, I use a mixture. I mean, the artists that work on the books, you know, well, first of all, some of the iconic costumes aren't really practical in a realistic sense.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I'm using Torpedo in the middle of the desert. You know, he's not going to be wearing a wetsuit and his fins, you know, and carrying air tanks. You know, he's a SEAL. He'd be, you know, dressed as a U.S. Navy SEAL would be in those circumstances. You know, the precedent has already been established that, you know, we can, you know, dress the characters appropriately for their.
So hopefully we can see some of those in the future, because the designs are pretty unique. A lot of fans saw the releases over the last 2 weeks. Now, okay, if you ever had a chance to redo a story arc back in the first run, which was the 82 series, would you tweak it or keep it as is?
Well, I've never gone back and rewritten anything. You know, I mean, it comes out of the way that I actually work. I don't, you know, most writers, I think, write outlines. You know,
with the story outline.
Yeah, they always have beginning, middle, and end, and you know, and then they have notes and all this stuff. And I've never written a story that way. Never written an outline. I start at page 1, and then I don't know what's on page 2 until I get to page 2. You know, so it's all.
I see.
You know, I just make it up as I go along, basically. And once I hand in a story, you know, I've never really reread any of them. You know.
Well, with that, you know, Cobra just doesn't seem to go away, right? They're pretty resilient. Mm-hmm. What's their staying power? I mean, there could be a way to introduce, like, you know, another major villain group or terrorist group. But aside from the idea that we just don't want to kill them all off, what's Cobra's staying power in your universe?
Well, you know, see, I look at all this stuff very differently. Because I came to all of this as a visual creator. You know, I started out drawing comics, and I had to draw comics for almost 20 years before anybody ever let me write one. You know, there was a sort of a strange prejudice against having artists write their own stuff, because I think it's because the editors are all writers. So, so if they let, you know, the artists write their own stuff, they'd be out of work.
Right, exactly. That's their big fear.
Yeah,
artists that can write.
They call it spitting in your wallet. So they, you know, so I conceive of the stories visually first. I don't think of them. I don't think in terms of words. I think in terms of pictures. So, you know, the way I write a story. I mean, the first stories that I ever wrote, I drew out. You know, in comic book circles in New York, we used to call this form of story of writing the Archie Goodwin method, because this is the way he wrote
see.
scripts. He would actually cartoon them out, very simple, figures, and then, handwrite the dialogue right on the page. So it was, you would get like an A6, a letter size sheet with his little layouts and his dialogue on them, and I didn't have a typewriter, I didn't have a word processor, so this was the only way I could do it.
Really different, right?
Right. So when I finally, I think the first computer I got was an IBM XT. It had, I think, 68K on it.
Is it still there? I mean, for archiving, or like, is it in your garage?
Oh no, it turned into a doorstop, years ago. I mean, it was pretty worthless about a year after I got it.
Okay.
And it took those big floppy disks. They were really floppy, and so I had already known how to touch type. I learned that in junior high school. I could type really fast, so that wasn't a problem. But I don't think in terms of words. So the way I had
these images.
Yeah. So I think of the whole story as sequences of images, and when I sit down at the word processor, I'm just describing the images that I saw. And one thing that about creating these stories that I picked up very early is that the first year that I was doing GI Joe, Hasbro had 4 animated TV commercials.
Yes.
And so they needed the covers for these commercials way before the books were produced. So I had to design those covers first. And, the parameters.
And then bring them in, yeah.
Yeah. And the parameters were that, in that issue, what Hasbro wanted was, we want this figure, and these 2 vehicles,
Random? So like, it's no job.
It was the ones that they were trying to sell that month, because basically these were toy commercials.
Agree.
And they, but it put me in a difficult situation, because sometimes they would be like, that's why there's one cover that has a ski trooper and a
is it snow job or something?
and a hang glider, in the same story. So I had to
like, sell this.
Yeah, I had to figure out a way to get all these elements into one cover, and but then I discovered that if you design the cover first, you can come up with a really slam bang, incredible piece of action, and a great looking image, and I thought it was better to come up with that image first and then base the whole story around that image, rather than do a whole story and then try to figure out a cover from it, because
pick a cover and
because one of the things that I did at Marvel when I was an editor there was I designed covers for other editors, because Jim Shooter required a cover sketch to be approved by him before you could assign the cover to an artist, right? So, and this was before there were JPEGs and and email. So, in order, if you wanted an artist outside of the actual office to do it, it would take 2 to 3 days at FedEx, to get to you. And since everything was always behind schedule, and I was right down the hall, the editors could walk down the hall and say, "Hey, this is issue something of Avengers. We need a cover," and they give me the Xeroxes of the interiors, and I'd had to figure out a cover from the interiors. So sometimes I would get a story, and I'd look at the interiors and I go, what the heck? How am I going to make a cover?
You can't pick a cover from it.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
very hard to extract a
That
really
slam
sort
bang
of
cover.
slam bang cover out of some of these stories. So that's when I realized, sometimes that you're putting the cart before the horse. Yeah.
Okay, I got another question for you. Regarding, you mentioned Stalker and Snake Eyes, and you have this bunch of characters that are really used a lot. They're pretty regular, including Lady J and Scarlet.
Mhm.
So as for the other rarely used Joes, like let's say, I don't know, DJ or the Arctic guys, there really aren't too many stories at times that they fit in. Sort of like how Aquaman could get into a space adventure with the Justice League, something like that. So how do you actually pick which characters to include in that story? Is it more of like you have a checklist and say like, okay, it's your time to shine, I'm gonna pick you and put you in this story? Or is it really more like the opportunity presented itself, like we have a desert battle, so we're gonna bring in Spearhead and Dusty? So can you please tell us more about that?
Well, it is more about the skills, the skill sets, and the personality traits pertinent to the story. I'm not going to try to fit square pegs into round holes. Although sometimes that could be a good story point, because it's a bit of contrast and a bit of whatever. But because it's a GI Joe especially is a very difficult balance, because it's a fantasy, but elements of it have to be realistic. Even though I realized that there were a lot of fantasy elements, I tried to keep military terminology and military usage and what they call the SOP, standard operating procedures. I tried to keep that as accurate as possible. So,
thank you. Sorry. Hello. So, Larry, regarding those like, sorry, can you hear?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
There's some weird buzzing.
Delay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. So regarding that particular, pickup, can't like put square pegs in a round hole, and there are certain characters. Let's now switch over to the dossiers that you've wrote. Even in today's collecting world, I mean, a lot of the people that are watching this feed are GI Joe toy collectors, aside from comic book fans, and they still keep your file cards. It's actually a highly tradable item, because back then, like, people would cut them out and sometimes they'd get damaged, and obviously they get wet. So the file cards are an important part in even today's collecting world with GI Joe fans here in the Philippines. So is it more fun to actually write Cobra dossiers or than GI Joes, or is it the other way around?
Well, each specific type has their own pleasures. I think I had the most fun writing the Dreadnoks dossiers, because it's impossible to jump the shark with them. You can just go way out. I still think that the dossiers are really important to really try to nail down the character, because I first started making dossiers just for myself, for my own reference, and it was Kirk Bazigian from Hasbro who came by the office, and he saw them on my desk, and he said, "Oh, we should put these on the backs of the package." And so he took those first 10 dossiers and edited down to 2 paragraphs. They were originally about 2 pages long, and they put them on the backs of the packages. And the first thing that happened was that the salesman You know, see, these are the guys that have to sell the company's products to the retailers. So the salesmen go to Toys R Us or any of these other outlets and have to sell them the wholesale items. They all reported back to the main office at Hasbro that, well, we really want more of these dossiers because, when we go into a meeting, all we do is we read the dossiers and we make a sale. And since then, the file cards on the back of a toy package have become standard in the industry. It's really, you really can't put out an action figure without a file card, and you have to realize that before that there weren't any file cards.
Yeah, agree.
And it went from nothing to being an industry standard.
I see.
Of course, I get no royalties. So.
Damn. Well, my favorite Joe ever is Dial Tone. So I loved everything about his background, comms. Now, let's go to the whole Filipino thing. There's like a huge discussion in our local Joe groups. There are a lot of local Joe groups here in the Philippines. And one of the key questions when they found out that you were going to guest for ToyCon TV 2020, it was, there isn't really a Filipino GI Joe in the comics up until issue 272. We really couldn't find anything that we can easily relate to, and it doesn't have to be.
That will change.
Yeah, guys, did you hear that? Hey, ToyCon TV fans, if you are still watching, and I know you are, Larry's gonna do something about the Filipino GI Joe. I mean, top of mind, without going through the whole let's create a dossier kind of thing. It doesn't even have to be in toy form or whatever. What branch of the military would he come from, and what specialization would he most likely have? Like infantry, sniper, medic?
Well, that's something to figure out. I actually have a few friends that I could base it on. So.
So we'll just keep it a surprise.
Yeah.
For the
the thing is, there are a lot of figures that started out as comic book characters. In the GI Joe universe.
Shooter.
Like the Baroness was the first.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and then they eventually made figures out of the October Guard and Quinn and
Quinn.
And even Billy. So
son of Cobra Commando.
Yeah, so that's when I realized, I could just introduce whoever I wanted to. A couple of years ago, I introduced an Arab GI Joe, and did it without any sort of, big publicity thing. It just slipped them in,
And there are customs to do it anyway. Like a lot of the modern collectors just kit bash an actual figure, and they just create that off your design.
I'm always surprised at what I could do, and nobody even notices.
Now, speaking of something that cannot be noticed, there's a very popular Ninja Commando that people always notice, and he's going to have a movie supposedly to be released by Paramount Pictures this year for October 2020. Okay, so were you? I mean, there were articles online that you were part of the consulting team. You're a consultant on the movie. Can you just give us a teaser on what you can say without us getting into trouble about Snake Eyes GI Joe Origins?
Well, what I've seen of it is pretty amazing. I can't really talk about details because of the NDA, but I was invited up to the set in Vancouver where they did all the interiors, and they built these amazing sets on this big lot in Vancouver. and this is not like the other two GI Joe movies, which were trying too hard to be science fiction. They didn't know where they were going. They were trying to be X-Men or something,
Right.
Because there was no pattern or there was no prototype for this, and so by concentrating on Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, they have a really good excuse to
fleshed out stories. Yeah.
To do a character-driven story that's basically a martial arts movie.
Oh, that's a tip, guys.
Yeah,
that's a tip. It's a lot like a martial arts movie.
They brought in a sword fight choreographer from Japan who did the choreography for a bunch of really famous
Kenji Tanigaki.
Yeah. This guy is amazing.
Yeah, shout out Kenji Tanigaki.
And
the Joe family.
he's a really nice guy, and he brought his whole crew with him.
Wow.
And they did one fight that's just mind blowing.
Wow. Okay.
The one that I actually saw, and he said, "Oh, this is nothing." You should see the other fights.
Wow.
And so it's a very different feel and visual impact than the previous Joe movies. I mean,
wow. Big
I
thumbs up from you.
I wasn't crazy about the first one, but the second one,
cameo there.
Yeah, the second one was, I think, a lot closer to the intent. But this one, I think they finally found their slot. Look, look how long it took Marvel to find. They made all those X-Men movies before somebody finally told them, "Hey, look, everybody's really interested in this Wolverine guy." I mean, since then they've done 2 Wolverine movies and a Logan movie, and they're certainly not doing, movies about, the guy with beams shooting out of his eyes or.
Yeah, true.
I mean, a lot of it is the way the suits and the business guys think, and these are bean counters and accountants, and they're thinking in terms of, we have all these IPs, and all these IPs are worth something, and we need to,
use everything.
Yeah, right.
Let's get a little bit of this. It's a buffet to them, so let's get this.
So they get all of it. Let's get it all in there, and they're not thinking, well,
there's no story.
It's very hard to have a story when you have, all these different characters. You need to, if you're going to have that many characters, you need to see it through one of the characters' eyes or concentrate on one of the characters, and then have, and that becomes a test bed to see how these supporting characters do, and you could really build up a whole universe that way. I mean, one of the first subjects for movies in Japan when the movie industry first started there was something called the Chushingura, which is the 47 Ronin, which has been, I mean, that's been remade. More than any other movie in the history of cinema. And there's been a movie made about each one of the 47 characters.
47 chapters, 47 episodes.
And it's like, and people know the story.
Yeah,
they just want, they want more
one
of
driving.
it. right. And if you look at it, if you look at the classic kung fu movies, there's really only one story.
Yeah. With a lot of characters.
And it always ends with the guy going up against the
master or the big bad,
the bad guys, and they're in their headquarters, and killing all of them, and then getting killed himself. I mean, every single one ends that way, right? It's, the Japanese have a gangster genre called Yakuza.
Yeah.
And you can't make a Yakuza movie without having these like 7 critical scenes, that you have to have a visit to the graveyard. You have to have,
the flow.
Right. You have to have the formal banquet. Then you have to have, the underdog getting
the sacrifice.
Yeah, sacrifice. Right. And then you have the final scene, which is exactly the same as the kung fu movie scene.
Yeah.
The good guy goes to the headquarters of the bad guys and
gets killed after killing the bad guy.
Right.
If they offered you a Netflix thing, would you do something like that? I mean, not really the 47 Ronin treatment, right? But let's say like a limited TV series, live action GI Joe limited series on Netflix or any other streaming company out there. Is it something that you would consider doing or be part of? And tell your stories.
Oh yeah, live action. But that's not going to happen.
You can't say it.
No, because again, it's all about financing. You could. That's why there was a company in Hollywood that used to print a book that listed everybody in Hollywood, actors, directors, and everything by their bankability. They actually created, a chart rating, everybody from 1 to 100.
Wow.
And so, and this was not made for anybody but investors.
Oh, okay.
So that, if an agent was able to assemble, 5 actors or creators that were really high on the bankability scale, their chances of getting funding were much higher. So how this applies, you can see how this applies to comics and toys and movies. It's the way they think. So I would never be considered to write anything because I don't have any
credits.
Like,
writing credits,
right? For that are applicable to that medium. See, that's why I couldn't get. I wasn't allowed to do any of the animation scripts because I didn't have any animation credits. Main reason why I never watched any of the animation.
Okay, FYI, guys.
I've never seen a single GI Joe animated anything.
Episode.
No.
Sunbow.
No, people used to come up to me at conventions and say, "Knowing is half the battle," and I was like, "What?" Because I'd never seen the PSAs.
Yeah, right. The ones after the show.
Yeah. So.
Hopefully they still get you. I mean, consider you as part of the consulting team at some point, if it ever does happen. Well, at this point, we're going to the Q&A, wherein we had some of the local Joe groups nominate a question. We have 4 questions. You can answer them briefly. We'll have the tech team flash them on screen so that you can also, there you go. So you can also read their names aloud. It's basically their digital shout out from you. So go ahead, Larry, with the first question.
Okay, this first question is by Leo Antazo. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, sir.
He says, I'd like to ask how you gradually felt about G.I. Joe since you weren't that enthusiastic to be writing the comics in the first place. But as the toys grew in popularity and has become one of the most successful toys ever, has your outlook on your creative direction changed as much? Well, first off, it wasn't that I wasn't enthusiastic about it. I mean, one thing that I learned working with Neil Adams at Continuity was that, you have to believe in whatever product that you're working on. Sometimes we would get in a product to do advertising for, and we go, oh man, this is like such a stupid idea. And Neil would get like, oh no, this is once we had to do the advertising campaign for something like, there were like coffee bags. They were like tea bags, only they had coffee in them. They were terrible. We tried them. They were just awful. And Neil would like drink them and go, no, these are really good. And we realized, he had to, psych himself up like that. And that was an important lesson for me, and that's when he told me, there's no such thing as a bad character in comics. There's a bad take on the character, and then Neil turned around and proved that himself by taking like Green Arrow and Green Lantern, who were like B-list, C-list characters, and
have nice stories.
And making them into A-list characters. So, I'm doing G.I. Joe as a fait accompli because, I've been trying to get work from Marvel, writing work from Marvel for years. I was a full editor there, and I couldn't get writing work. And so they offered the G.I. Joe comic to every single contract writer at Marvel, and they all turned it down. Then they offered it to every non-contract writer, and even the kid that goes out to get coffee. And
and then finally they offered it to you.
The coffee kid turned it down because it was considered an insult to offer somebody a toy-based comic because they were the bottom of the barrel. They were the licensing fee came off the top of the page rate, so they actually paid you less to write the thing.
It came with the licensing, right?
Yeah. So the editor-in-chief went down the entire editorial row, office after office, and everybody turned. My office was the last office.
It's at the end of the hall.
Yeah, so I was at the end of the hall. So he comes in, and he, at this point he was like sure that like nobody, he said, "Oh, G.I. Joe, you don't want this," and I said, "I do."
Dibs.
Yeah,
calling dibs.
So it was my way to get my foot in the door as a writer, and I thought, well, it'd be stupid of me to just buzz this off. I mean, I said, this is the only shot I've got. I've got to give it my best shot. But that's how I feel about most of this stuff, is that you shouldn't have a B position. You should always be doing an A product.
Agree. If you're gonna do it the best way that you can.
Do the best. Always give it the best shot, and you can't go wrong.
Thank you, Larry. We have like 3 more.
Okay.
We'll just like show it to you. It's pretty short anyway. Go ahead, please.
Okay, this is from Jeffrey Salvalion Valeriano. Is that right? Okay. I see that many letters and I get a panic attack. Okay, question: if you will be in charge of a new G.I. Joe movie, what would be the plot and who would be the characters? Well, then again, I wouldn't know until I wrote page 1.
Okay, so we'll just have to wait until they get you writing credits.
Yeah, I would. I, I would go for a new start.
Okay. It's a reboot,
Yeah,
basically.
just do a reboot. Yeah.
Okay. So next slide, we'll have the third out of the 4 questions.
This is from Gray Pueblo. With all the crossovers out there, which fandom would you like to cross over with GI Joe that hasn't been done yet?
I don't know, Ghostbusters? I mean, there's GI Joe Transformers and GI Joe Power Rangers. Maybe is there something that you'd probably like GI Joe to cross over with?
As a you mean as a toy line?
Could be a toy line or storyline.
Hadn't really thought about that. Maybe, you know, maybe
Ducks?
well, it'd have to be what I was familiar with. I don't think the Ducks would be a crossover.
Wolverine!
I would happily do an old Duck GI Joe, but because I started out as a Carl Barks Uncle Scrooge fan. Yeah, he was my first influence, and I've always said that GI Joe is really Junior Woodchucks with guns, you know.
Anthropomorphic ducks.
Yeah, but I think as for an actual crossover, it might be interesting to do like Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos.
Yeah, Howling Commandos or Punisher.
Or I don't know about the Punisher, possibly. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll have the last question now before we wrap up. Okay. All yours, Larry.
Okay, submitted by Carlo Angelo Marcello. Maybe it's Marcello or Marcello?
Marcello.
Okay. What's your favorite long-term GI Joe storyline? Cobra, Civil War, Battle of Benzine, etc. Probably the Battle of Cobra Island.
Okay.
It was the most challenging.
It still holds a special place in your heart because of the difficulty in probably.
Well, it just getting all those characters into the storyline, and having those characters have real things to do. And be integral. I've not been able to duplicate that since, so I have to stand with that one.
Thank you, Larry. Well, I'm all set to hand the rest of the panel over to Cholo, but on behalf of all the GI Joe fans here in the Philippines, we sincerely appreciate your time. I know it's 10:30 a.m. there in New York. Time flew very fast with our discussion. I know we were only just to have you for 30 minutes, but the stories that you told, the reveals that you gave about a future Filipino GI Joe, hopefully gracing the comic books, the Snake Eyes teaser, everything. We really appreciate you, and we have nothing but love for the body of work that you've done with the GI Joe fandom. Maraming salamat, Larry. It really means a lot to all of us.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it now back to Cholo. I think he's going to ask you to choose a winner for Cholo's back.
Thank you, Larry.
Well, thank you, Glenn.
It was fun, really, just listening and finding out more about this universe that, admittedly, I got into it. I was into it for a while. Of course, the movies got me. The toys, when they reissued the GI Joe line, because I didn't get in on it, very early on, or when I was a child. But I got into it when the first movie came out, and I had a whole collection of the new GI Joe toys that Hasbro came up with. But unfortunately, it didn't stay long with me. I don't know what happened. I decided to sell the entire collection, and now it's a big regret. It's really my top regret in terms of my toy collecting. So unfortunately I do not have a single one, but I am definitely going to be be getting the new 6-inchers, all right, that are already starting to pop out. And Hasbro, I think last night here in the
Yeah,
Philippines,
Friday.
had the Hasbro Pulse, and they were talking about how to relaunch the 3 3/4 line, and then of course, but everything is all about the 6-inch line now. So I don't know, Larry, if are you still gonna do the file cards for the 6-inch line toys? Sorry,
No,
this is a newbie question, but not for the 6-inch
no.
line toys. All right. And then I guess one more question related to the movie, the new Snake Eyes movie that is coming out. And this is a question from Nino Barshal asking, is there going to be a new female Snake Eyes character that will be introduced in the canon somehow? Or is there one already in development? And then they heard about a character named Dawn Moreno.
Yeah, it's in the comics, Don Moreno.
All right.
Yeah.
Snake Eyes.
Yeah, well, she's not in the movie, but she turned out to be an extremely popular character with the readers.
Yeah.
So,
Really?
One of the covers were made by Harvey Tulibao,
A Filipino, yeah.
Filipino artist. One of the covers, a variant cover, was done by Harvey.
All
So
right.
shout outs to Harvey.
well, I had a long history of working with Filipino artists because I was the editor of Conan the Barbarian and Savage Sword of Conan for a long time. So I had the pleasure of working with some of the top guys, Nestor Redondo.
Woo!
Yeah, wow.
The real
Alcala?
Alfredo Alcala, Alex Nino. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
these are
Filipino legends.
maestros. They were amazing artists, and won't see the likes of them again. But, and Ernie Chan and Danny Bolonati and all these guys. Ernie Chan and Danny Bolonati used to.
You have stories about them.
They were on the West Coast, Los Angeles area. Oh, maybe it was in San Diego, and they had a van, a white van, and they had 2 drawing tables in the van, and they would go to the beach and park in the parking lot at the beach, and just ink at the beach. I said, yeah, says, hey, we're at the beach. We can watch all the girls walk by in their bikinis.
You're inking.
And they're inking Conan on the beach. I thought that was really great.
Well, those are the Filipinos for you. It's really
We
more
all
fun
work.
wherever they are. As long as they have the Filipino blood in them, it's all fun. All right. So, but you did mention that we probably never see the likes of them, but there are actually a couple of new guys.
There's some new
who
guys that are really
making
terrific.
waves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steven Segovia, Harvey Tuliba, of course, Linil, you, Carlo Pagulayan. We hope that you get to that they get to draw some of your new
Offers.
stories.
Nico Suayan.
Soon. All right. So as you can see, Larry, we love you over here, and this is one, I guess, promise that we will have to keep. So we are going to do everything and anything to get you over to Manila to join us,
Larry.
probably for ToyCon next year.
Okay.
We'll set the date very early on. We'll let you know, and we'll take care of you, bring you to our beaches and everything else that we can do for you here. Because I'm pretty sure this is just a teaser for a lot of your fans here, but it's already such a big privilege for us to have you with us, at least online. So thank you, Larry, for joining us for ToyCon.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right, so do stay on because I think Glenn has prepared a prize for the GI Joe fans who are tuned in. Well, actually, anybody who is tuned in at this time. So Glenn is going to give away a loot bag. Maybe can you show the contents of what you have there, Glenn? So
Got some
we'll do.
books in here. It's too many, but we'll have it ready for delivery as soon as some of the measures for COVID are eased here in the metro. We can have it delivered to the house. Cholo's going to I don't know how do we get the prize out?
We're gonna give Larry the chance to ask the question. So maybe Larry, you can give us a question, a little trivia about yourself that people should know if they're a true fan. So ask us any question about anything. It need not be a GI Joe thing, anything about yourself or about your work. And then let's get the first person with the right answer to win this loot bag, courtesy of our friends from Toy Soldiers. So do you have anything, any question you'd like
You mean
to?
some trivia question?
Yeah, some sort of trivia question.
Title of a comic or
So
whatever.
something about that you probably shared on the show, or maybe even something that uh, uh, is popular knowledge with you or your the characters that you created. All right, you have one for us?
It's hard to think.
All right, let's again.
Okay.
I'll ask one. I'll ask
Okay.
one for you. I'll ask one
Okay.
for you. Okay. So I did mention sometime in the start that you actually tried your chops at acting, particularly on a TV show that was very famous back in the 70s.
Right.
All right. I don't know
Okay.
if this is this something that you're actually proud of, that you look back fondly on this time
Oh,
as
yeah.
an actor.
It was a lot of fun.
So of course, back in the day, I think it set the standard for a sitcom, but there wasn't any laugh tracks. We were watching
Right,
reruns of this now on a channel here in the Philippines. Okay, so Larry Hama came out in a very popular TV series back in the 70s. So what is the title of that TV show? All right, what
Wow.
is the title of that TV show that Larry came out in back
People
in
are
the day?
blowing
all
up
right?
the chat box as in
Then it was
really.
it was an army, and it had something to do with the army.
Uh-huh.
Well, because you were a veteran, you're a veteran yourself, Larry. Served how many tours?
What? No, I was a draftee. I was in the Army for 2 years.
Okay.
Oh,
Sweet.
wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service then, sir.
Okay.
All right. So there you go. So I think we have some answers already from our messages, but there you go. I'm pretty sure people would know this if you're a true Larry Hama fan. So I just typed up the right answer so Jay can look out for the first person to give us the correct answer. And we'll give out the loot bag, courtesy of our friends from Toy Soldiers. So while we're waiting for the official decision on that, you broke some very interesting news. So you're doing the pencils for, oh no, so not the pencils,
The
but you're
story
actually
it's
going
ready.
back to writing for GI Joe in IDW.
276.
And 276, there you go.
So
There you
That's
go. That's right. And is this something that's going to be ongoing? Writing for the Joe comics for IDW?
Well, I have been.
Nice. This is a really epic run.
I'm the
All right.
regular writer on A Real American Hero.
All right. Okay, so we'll look forward to that, and hopefully, the thing about the distributorship. Well, I think IDW is still with Diamond. Are they? So
I don't. Well, this is all. It's all
Is
up
it
in
up
the
in
air.
the air? Now it's up in the air. Right.
We don't. Nobody knows what's going to happen. It's things. Things change day by day. It's
Really.
and the craziness just keeps getting crazier.
Oh no! All right. Well, this is actually going to be our topic for next week's show. So we're going to be bringing in the comic book experts to talk about the state of the comic book industry, and hopefully things get better. Because a lot of people are affected. It's not just us, the fans, but it's really the industry. The comic book stores, you guys, the creators. So hopefully things pan out for the best, and we all look forward to getting the new issues of the GI Joe comics in our hands sooner than later. All right, and we have our winner already up in the chat. Maybe you can announce this, Glenn, if you see it. Congratulations!
Congratulations to Owie Bennett.
There you go. There you go.
Owie,
Nice.
congratulations.
Congratulations!
You get to
the
win
title
a
of the show
prize.
is
So,
of course MASH. There you go. Thank
an
you. Thank you
actress
for
match. shout outs to all of the toy groups that participated: Toy Soldier 118, GI Joe Philippines, GI Joe Ukay Ukay, GI Joe Toys Philippines. And again, thank you so much, Larry, for your
Manila
time.
Joe's.
Manila
Okay.
Joe's. Hopefully, we
Right.
get to bring you really for 2021. We're excited for it. God willing, after the pandemic.
I know.
Yes, and maybe one last message from you, Larry, for your Filipino fans.
Hey, just keep hanging in there. I'll try to get over there when I can, and we'll see about that character. We're working on it now.
Woohoo!
Okay.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Okay.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Larry, and all of the guests for tonight, Quicks, Maikez, and also, of course, Mr. Jed Madela. Thank you for joining us for this very special weekend. Yes, we all miss ToyCon, but you know what? We're going to come back, and we're going to come back, as usual, bigger and better. So we'll see you guys soon, and thank you a lot. Thank you so much again for joining ToyCon TV for tonight. This has been Cholo. Thank you to Glenn, and mabuhay
All right.
to all of you.
Bye, Larry.
ToyCon! We all love you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Hey.